Hello everyone, welcome to our webinar. My name is Andrew Townsend. I'm with eLearning Brothers. Today we're going to be talking about time-saving PowerPoint hacks you need to know. These are going to be things that will help you become more efficient in PowerPoint and hopefully help you make or become an eLearning rockstar. This session will be recorded and we'll be sending a copy out to everybody who has registered shortly after the webinar, so you can be looking for your email for that. We'll also include some links to other useful things that you may be interested in. If you have questions during the webinar, we'll be ready to use that questions panel. It looks like several of you have already found that. Hello from all around the world. Thanks for joining us today. All right, so to talk to us about PowerPoint, we have Andrew Vass, one of our developers, with us today. Thanks, Andrew, for your time, and I'll go ahead and turn the time over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everyone, for joining me today. Super excited to talk about PowerPoint hacks. This is actually a really fun topic. This was really fun for me to prepare for you guys, so I'm super excited to dive into this. Let's jump forward and talk about, so these are the things that I'll cover today. As you can imagine, if you've been working in PowerPoint really for any amount of time, there is a lot to choose from. There's so much that PowerPoint can do, so it's really hard to narrow it down to just these topics. But this is what I'm going to cover today. I'll cover customizing the quick access toolbar, correctly embedding fonts, aligning objects, compressing file size, combining shapes, presentation mode features, using SmartArt, different ways to use the SmartArt feature, using the selection panel, and then if I have time, I'll get into using links to create branching with a new feature that was released with a recent PowerPoint update, and then saving and launching a PowerPoint show. Now, before I get into discussing all of these, we have a poll question. Andrew, if you want to launch that. Awesome.
So go ahead and let us know. You can click right on the screen. What do you primarily use PowerPoint for? Are you creating linear slideshow presentations, creating interactive e-learning courses or modules? And if you find that you do some of these equally, you can click on multiple boxes. So what are you using PowerPoint for? Storyboard design, document design, or if it's something else that we couldn't think of or didn't list at least, go ahead and use that questions panel, and we'll make sure that everything you did is represented. All right, looks like a good chunk of you have voted, so I'll go ahead and close that poll and share those results. So about 80% of our audience is creating linear slideshow presentations. 48% use it for storyboard design. 41% use it for creating interactive e-learning courses or modules. 28% for document design, and 8% are other. And some of those other ideas were posters, graph illustrations, shortcut to video creation with PowerPoint and Camtasia. I use it as a graphic editor, a builder. I use it to create elements within eLearning. Video Maker, a lot of people using that. Using it to build animations that import into the Storyline 360, social media videos. So yeah, I mean, we've got quite a span of uses here.
Yeah, that's a lot, and there are a ton of different ways to use PowerPoint. Thanks everyone for answering that. I just kind of wanted to gauge where everyone was at, and that makes sense for our audience, for an e-learning audience. Most of the things I talk about today should actually apply to the majority of things that were mentioned, which is good. Before I get started, I just want to mention that I'm working in PowerPoint version 1907, excuse me, on a PC. If you are using a really old version, some of the features I talked about might not be in there. However, if you're using version, I want to say 16 or above, then you should have everything in your PowerPoint installation that I talk about. I'm not super familiar with PowerPoint for Mac, but I think it's about the same. All right, so let's get started with presentation mode. And I'm kind of jumping around here because I'm in presentation mode currently, so I'm going to start with that. That's what I love about doing PowerPoint webinars, is I don't have to hop between different programs. So presentation mode, there are so many different things you can use in presentation mode that are actually readily available to you, but I know at least for myself, for someone who doesn't do a lot of presenting, I mostly use PowerPoint to create projects that I'm going to import into other courses or just to create documents. However, back when I was in school, I used presentation mode a lot, and I didn't really dive deep into the different features that it has. But as I was doing my research, I found out that there are actually a lot of cool things that can really help save you time. And let me see if I can actually drag my presentation window over my screen. Can you see that? Oh, perfect. All right, so when you're in presentation mode and you're using two screens, this is what you'll see. You'll see the presentation mode screen and then the audience view right here. And below here, there are a few different options, different buttons that you can deploy that are going to do different things for you in presentation mode. So the first one is if you click this pen and laser pointer tool, it'll give you a drop down and let you select a few of those. So if you are, for example, in this webinar, if I wanted to draw attention to this one of these particular objectives, I can just select that laser pointer, and if I come over here, that's going to pop up for me. A different way to do that than just by using your mouse pointer, which is kind of nice. However, another option is to actually be able to draw directly on your slides using this pen tool. And I can click that by selecting this and then selecting the pen, or just by selecting Control P in my presentation mode. That'll open up the pen. And then I have the option to draw directly on the screen, select things right there. And then what's nice is that once I close my presentation mode and go back into PowerPoint, I actually have the option to save any annotations that I made to my project that I can go in and edit or delete as I would need to, which is a really useful feature. Another thing that's nice is that you can select this to kind of get a bird's eye view, a menu view of all of the slides in your project. So say, for example, I'm going through my objectives and then I want to ask if there were any questions here. I can just select that question slide, where rather than having to put a bunch of different question slides in my project, I can just bounce back between that. And then again, I can select this to go back to my slide. Or a nice shortcut is I can actually just from any slide, if I know the slide number that I want to go to. So see, for example, the question slide is number 9 in my project. All I have to do is just press the number 9 on my keyboard and then press enter. You can't see that, that's just what I did. And that'll jump right to the slide you want to go to. And then you can use this just to jump right back. So that's a nice little hack to kind of bounce around between your presentation if you need to, so kind of makes a branching presentation out of just a linear presentation without having to add any sort of interactivity into PowerPoint itself. Another helpful thing in presentation mode is this zoom feature. Selecting that will show a zoom area and I can select and bump in there. However, rather than selecting this magnifying glass, I can just use the plus and minus key directly to press or to zoom into any point on the side, or any point on the slide, excuse me. And then if I zoom out far enough, that it'll bump out to my menu view right there. That's a nice little shortcut. This is a feature, this black and unblack slides is actually a feature that I didn't know existed in PowerPoint until I started doing a lot more research preparing for this webinar. And what this feature, they kind of market it as, is if you need to get your audience attention back while you're presenting, you can just kind of black out the screen, and then that'll get your audience re-engaged into your presentation. However, instead of doing this, you can actually just press the B key on your keyboard, and that'll black out the screen.
B is in bubbles?
Sorry, B is in bubbles, yes.
Okay.
Excuse me, thanks for clarifying. It's B is in black, actually. And then, so you can press the B key to black that out, and then any other key on the slide will show your slide again. Excuse me, any other key on the keyboard will show your slide again. And I can also actually white out the screen too by pressing the W key. So there are a couple different options there. Rather than having to go directly into presentation mode and find that button, I can just press the B or the W key to blacken or whiten my slide.
Now, it has been pointed out that normally you won't have your presenter view on top of your screen. You'd have it on another screen.
Normally.
Yeah, okay.
Actually, yes, any other, for any other presentation except this one, probably, you would have that on another screen.
Sure. So you're not normally showing that presentation?
Nope, and what's nice is anything that I do on this presentation mode is not going to show up on the the view, on the audience view, excuse me. So like that, for example, this zoom feature that I have right here, bring that over. I can see that zoom area right there, but it's not showing up for the audience until I actually click that, and then it'll pop in there. All right, so those are just a few hacks for presentation mode that should make it a lot easier for you to navigate around your presentation, and also some shortcuts to help make it more engaging for your audience. Now let's jump out of presentation mode and into PowerPoint itself. I'm going to press escape, and you can see right here it says if I want to keep my ink annotations, I can either keep or discard. And let's show if I keep them, jump back in here, and they're just right there. I can edit, change color, do whatever I need to. I'll get rid of those. All right, the next hack that I want to talk about is embedding fonts in PowerPoint. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are aware that if you are using custom fonts and really creating something really nice in PowerPoint, and then you decide to either share that with a collaborator for them to edit, or you need to open that on another machine, it can get kind of tricky if you haven't embedded your fonts, because then it's going to change the whole design. So the way to do that in PowerPoint is to come up to File, and then down here in the left-hand corner, select Options. That'll bring up your PowerPoint options, and then the font embedding feature is in this Save window right here, just right at the bottom. And I'm not sure if this is selected automatically in PowerPoint. It wouldn't surprise me if it was, just because this is a feature that a lot of people use, and that's recommended for everyone. But I always like to just double check this to make sure, especially like I said, if I'm sharing between collaborators, to make sure that the fonts are embedded in the file. And you have a couple options here. You can either just embed only the characters you use, which says it reduces the file size. However, I always just select embed all characters. Unless you have a huge project and using a ton of different fonts, it's really not going to affect the size of your project that much. And it's a nice fail-safe to make sure that no matter what environment you're opening or viewing this presentation, all the fonts are going to show up properly. So that's something I like to do there. Question?
Yeah, a question came up back about the pen tool marking on your slide.
Yeah.
Is there a way to make those marks and then just quickly get rid of those? So maybe while you're presenting, you're saying, oh, and so this is an important part, this is an important part, and you're circling those sections, and then just quickly remove them.
Yep. So you can, let me bring this over here again. So with that pen tool, if you select that, select the pen, draw something right there. Let me open this up, and you can select that as well. And then either you can have an eraser to manually erase that ink on your slide. Oh, I need to erase that in presenter view, excuse me. Manually erase that, each of those annotations that you make, or you can just erase all of the ink, which will completely clear the slide. No keyboard shortcuts for that, but that's just right here in the, by selecting that, that annotation menu. Good question. All right, let's bump back into my presenter view. You guys are getting a sneak peek of my slides today. Another quick one that I want to talk about is just making sure that you compress the file size of the images in your presentation. I mentioned that embedding fonts, choosing which fonts to embed isn't going to affect the file size that much. However, compressing images really does do a lot to decrease the file size of your project and help it run quicker, help it transfer to other collaborators easier. A couple ways that you can do that. You can either select a picture and then come up to the picture format tab at the very top, and then in the adjust panel, compress pictures. That'll open up this dialog box. This particular picture was already compressed before I imported it in, so I can see that it is in the excuse me, the lowest resolution right there, so I don't have any options. I can't increase the resolution here, I can only compress it. But I also have the option to apply only to this picture. So if I deselect that, then that will compress all of the photos in my project to whatever this photo is. And then I can also delete cropped areas of pictures, which is kind of nice if you have been doing a lot of cropping, or you have if you've been cropping a lot of images, then you can actually remove that crop area, and then unfortunately you can't go back to that. So what you usually want to do is just make sure if you're compressing pictures, make sure you are completely finished with editing your project, at least as much as you possibly can, before you do this, before you're presenting it or sharing it with anyone. Yes.
We did have one quick update. So when you are drawing on your slides, you need to quickly erase those. It looks like the E key, E is an elephant keystroke. Will
there you go. Perfect.
Your annotation. So thanks for that update.
Thank you to whomever mentioned that. That is good to know. That is definitely another PowerPoint hack. All right, so I showed you one way to compress pictures. Another way is, again, open up this file options menu. Come over here to the Advanced tab. And then, I didn't have to scroll down. Image size and quality right here. I can select actually default resolution for all of the images in my project. And then I can also select do not compress images in this file. If I deselect that, then it's going to compress all of the images in the project.
Does it have, when you're compressing, does it have a default picture resolution that it's compressing to? Are you going to be losing picture resolution, or is it dangerous to compress?
It is dangerous to compress. That's why I said you always want to do it at the end of your editing process. Just because you can't get that back, you can't increase that resolution. Once you compress, they are compressed. If you're working with a design, a lot of times if you're working with a designer, a lot of your images will be pre-compressed before you bring them in. However, if you're adding something from a stock library or something like that, they're always going to come in really high resolution, which can drastically increase the size of your project file.
So when you compress them at the end, it is compressing it to the minimum size needed to look the way it does under screen?
You can select that. So that depends on what you're designing for. Let me come back over to this menu in picture format, compress pictures. You can see right here that it says for whatever medium you're delivering your project on, the best resolution right there. So usually there's really not very many instances where a PowerPoint presentation, at least the presentation you're giving, would need to be high res. However, if you are creating a chart or a graphic or an ebook, you probably want to have that high fidelity in there. So it really does depend on your end goal for your presentation or your project. All right, so those compressing file size and those embedding images, those can save you a lot of headache in the long run. Either cutting down on file size or transferring projects to making sure everything shows up right and runs properly. And jumping into another time-saving thing is the quick access toolbar. Now, I'm going to show this by using the align feature. So if I come over here, I have 3 shapes right here that I want to align and distribute so they look evenly distributed on my slide. In order to do that, by default, I have to select all of those images, come over here to the Arrange dropdown, select that, and then navigate down to the Align menu, and then align those images to the top. That aligns them. I can align top or align middle. However, if I want to distribute them, I have to repeat the process all over again. Arrange, align, and then distribute horizontally. However, that's a lot of steps just to get 2 things to happen in PowerPoint. One thing I like to do is customize my quick access toolbar. Now, what the quick access toolbar is it's this bar right in the very top above all those other commands in PowerPoint. By default, this is what will be shown in the quick access toolbar: the save feature, the undo, the redo, and then the play slideshow from the beginning. However, I can actually customize this to have any command that I want in PowerPoint. I have the option to choose from everything PowerPoint can do and add it into this quick access toolbar. To do that, I just click this drop down, and then I can see a lot of the most common commands that are in PowerPoint. So I can just select one of these. It'll add that directly into my toolbar. Or I can select more commands, and then that'll open up the options window and allow me to select from every single command that PowerPoint can do and bring that to my quick access toolbar. So by default, it'll show just the popular commands here. However, I want to add all of those align and distribute functions to my quick access toolbar so I can just easily select them without having to drill down into different menus. To do that, I'll just select this drop down and select all commands. And then that'll bring up every single thing PowerPoint can do. You can see there's just a ton. So for my purposes, I want the align feature. So I'm going to search for align right here. And then I can either add the align objects menu. You can see if there's an arrow there, that means that I'm adding a menu to my quick access toolbar, but I just want to add the specific commands. So I can select that, select add, and then I'm just going to add all of those align features right there. And I also want to add the distribute because I'll be using that again. Scroll down to D. Unfortunately, there's no search function in here. Right there, distribute horizontally and distribute vertically. And there's also some other features that I like to add. I always like to add play. So there, by default, play project from the beginning is in your quick access toolbar, but I also want to add start project from current slide. That's a feature that I use a lot. So let's see where that is. Start from this slide. There we go. And right here, I can see that these are all of the commands that will now be in my quick access toolbar. And this is associated with your PowerPoint installation. This is not project specific. If I'm working on a project and I'm using a specific kind of non-traditional command for just one project, I can select my project and then move commands over for this specific project. But then once I open a new project, those commands will not be there. It will only be the commands for all documents right here. Another option is I can show quick access toolbar below the ribbon. So if I select that, what that does is that now brings it from here in the top left corner down to below this ribbon. And I like this because it adds some color. I think it's easier to use. It also minimizes mouse travel if you want to get that far into it. However, all those options are right there. So if I undo this, now instead of having to deal with that arrange menu, I can just select this, come over here to my align, I'll align those bottom, and then distribute like that, and it was a lot easier that way. So that's something that can, if you are, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to, especially if you've been working in PowerPoint for a long time, to get used to using this instead of coming up here to the ribbon to find all of your commands. However, it saves a lot of time in the long run. All right, so that's a quick access toolbar. Let me come over here to my notes. Oh yeah, so the next one is duplicating and aligning objects. So moving along right here, I just have this one square. Now, if I wanted to, let's say, create a grid, a square grid, kind of the most common way that, at least the way I used to do it and the way I've seen a lot of developers do it, is just selecting this and then Control-C to copy and then Control-V to paste. And then what you'd have to do is just kind of move that around, and luckily PowerPoint has these red grid lines that can help you align that properly. And then move that around and then select it there. And then select the other two. Again, do the same thing, Control-V, do that, and then select all of them and distribute to make sure they're in the proper place. That's a lot of extra steps. There's actually a much easier way to do this by using the PowerPoint duplicate feature. So if I select this, and instead of Control-C to copy, I Control-D to duplicate, that's going to do is it will look on the stage just like I copied and pasted it. However, once I move this and align it where I need to, if I just reactivate that duplicate, so select Control-D again, it's now going to duplicate the object with the exact same alignment and distribution as my originally duplicated object. So then I can just Control-D right there, and I don't have to worry about aligning and again worrying about the arrange menu right there.
That's really quick. We had a couple questions come up about that quick access menu. Is there are you limited to a certain number of options in that menu?
I don't think so. I mean, I know you can definitely have as many options that span this area right here. I haven't tested adding all of those, but it doesn't say anywhere that there is a limit.
And do you have to reset up everything every time you open a project? Or does PowerPoint remember that?
So PowerPoint will remember that. If I open this one more time, that's all decided right here. If I have this selected, every command that I move over to the all documents will show up in every single PowerPoint project that I open in my PowerPoint installation. So this isn't going to be project specific. So if I were creating this on one computer and then I wanted to edit it on another computer, I would have to re-add those those commands, unless I put it right here in my specific project, then that will transfer over. So it kind of depends on what you need there.
All right, great, thank you.
Cool. All right, so I showed you how to duplicate and align objects. However, there's still one fault with that method, is that what that does is that requires me to manually move this other square image, text box, shape, whatever it is. I have to manually move that and then Control D to duplicate the rest of them. However, if I just select my initial shape or object and then hold down Control to duplicate and then Shift to maintain the alignment, then I can actually just move that and maintain the alignment automatically. I don't have to worry about doing that myself. And then I can press not Control D, which is what I just did. I want to press let me do that again. So I Control Shift and then drag. I don't have to press anything. And then instead of Control D to duplicate, what I want to do is press Control Y, which is actually going to redo that set of commands that I just did. So Control Y will now, it will redo the duplicate and it will redo the move for me. So I can do all of that right there, and then same thing right here. If I want to select all of those, Control Shift and drag, and then Control Y to do that. It's a really easy way to create a grid like this, or just to duplicate several different objects in PowerPoint if you need to. All right, so that's my hack for duplicating and aligning objects. Next, we're going to dive into using SmartArt. So let's take the bulleted list, for example. We all know that this is not the most effective way to present information. However, us as developers, we get bulleted lists a lot, whether they're from storyboards, whether we're kind of just copy and pasting content into PowerPoint. And it can get difficult to make this visually appealing for the learner, for the end user. There's really no way to break these up, because in order to make a bulleted list more engaging, you have to break up the content and then redistribute and redesign it that way. However, in PowerPoint, there's no way to just automatically break up a bulleted list. You have to copy and paste a bunch of times and then delete the text you don't need, and that just gets super cumbersome. So one really cool way to do this in PowerPoint is actually using the SmartArt feature. So if I select this bulleted list and then make sure the Home tab is activated, come up here to Paragraph and then convert to SmartArt. And what this does is it gives me a lot of different design options and different ways to present that bulleted list, whether it's just a bunch of different shapes or adding image placeholders. There's a lot of unique ways that you can present that just a list of information rather than just a list of text. I have all these, and even if I open more SmartArt graphics, there is just a ton of different ways to present that information. So this is really useful if you just need some design inspiration, or if you want to, as I was talking about, split this bullet up into different objects so you can actually edit them all individually. So I'll close that, come back here to convert to SmartArt, and we'll do it this way. So once I select that, then it's going to create a group in PowerPoint. So now these are all different shapes, all just grouped together. So if I right click, group, ungroup, this is actually a a command you might want to, at least I probably should have added to my quick access toolbar just because it's something that I use a lot. Ungroup, and then really quickly do it again. Now I have access to edit all of these individually. I can move them around. I can distribute them. Now there's a different way, kind of a more engaging way to display that bulleted list. So using SmartArt with text, there's a lot of possibilities you can use there, or that you can leverage there. And it's really simple and it's really easy. Another way you can use SmartArt is for images. So right here I have, I think, 6 different stock images that I just downloaded from the eLearning Brothers stock library, all part of the same collection. However, I bring them in, they're all a bunch of different sizes, all super big, so they fill the stage, and I want to get these all the same size so I can maybe use them as an objective screen, or maybe as a clickable interaction. The old way of doing this is I would select one, select the other, come over and align them, and then select the larger one, come over here to picture format, select crop, bring that over here, and then move the image inside that mask, and then crop it so now they're the same size. However, if I deploy that SmartArt feature, I can cut down on almost all of those steps. So I selected all of the images there, come up to the picture format tab, and then for some reason, instead of SmartArt, it's called picture layout for when you're doing them for images, when you're using SmartArt for images. So I'll select this, and then again, I'm selected with some SmartArt options there, some design options. If I select this one, for example, what that did is that made them all the same size, it cropped them, kind of centered them, did all my work for me. Now all I have to do is just ungroup a few times until I have all of these individually. I can get rid of these labels, so I don't need those there. Now I have a bunch of images the same size. I can select these to select them all to resize them all if I'm not happy with the size that the SmartArt set them as. And I also have the option, if I don't like where that picture is centered, I can use crop to change that mask as well. That's a really easy way to change picture size and make them all uniform in PowerPoint. Is there a question?
Yeah, is there a way to add to the SmartArt options, like additional add-ins? Can you purchase additional templates? Do you know anything about that, or is that limited by Microsoft?
I'm not sure. I would imagine there is a way. There's a lot you can do with PowerPoint on the back end. I'm sure there are probably vendors who sell different SmartArt configurations. However, like I mentioned, there are a ton of SmartArt options. At least let's go back to the text right here. There are so many different SmartArt options that you really should be able to easily create any sort of combination that you would need directly by selecting one of these and then editing the different objects as you would need to. So I'm not sure if they're sold anywhere, but it's a possibility.
All right, great, thanks.
Okay. All right, so that's SmartArt. Next, moving on, the next hack is removing the background of objects directly within PowerPoint. So for this particular slide, let's say I have an objective slide. This is an objective slide that I downloaded from the eLearning Brothers PowerPoint library and brought into my project. And for this particular instance, I'm not really happy with the icons there. I actually want to replace them with something that I downloaded from a stock library. So I downloaded this, and unless you're downloading, usually in a stock library, there's options for vector, SVG files. If you're just downloading a PNG image file, then it's usually going to have a background in the image. So previously, you would have to round trip through a photo editing software, go in, remove that background, save it as a new PNG file, and then bring it back into PowerPoint. However, PowerPoint actually has the option to remove this directly within the tool. So if I select this image right here, come up to picture format, there's so much you can do as far as image editing goes in PowerPoint. but you can also remove the background right here. So if I select this, what this is going to do is identify the background for me. And then this orange part right here are parts of the background that will remove once I select keep changes. So if I come up here and just select if I'm happy with what PowerPoint is removing, I can just select that right there, and it will remove the background for me, and I'll have a transparent image that I can resize and reposition on my slide. However, for this particular image, there's actually some parts of that check mark that PowerPoint took out that actually should have been part of that image. So if I undo that, come back up to remove background, it'll do the same. Then let me zoom in here. Oh, Control and scroll on your mouse is a shortcut to zoom. That's another time-saving tip. Rather than having to come down here and use the plus and minus, just Control and use your click wheel on your mouse to zoom in and zoom out. So if I select this, I can actually come up here and mark areas that I want to keep and mark areas that I want to remove. So for this particular instance, there's a lot of areas that I do want to keep. So if I activate that, I can come onto the image and then just click certain areas, and PowerPoint will fill those in with the original image. And it's actually pretty good. However, sometimes it requires you to click a lot. So what you can actually do is just click and drag, and that will also just automatically refill those parts in refill them in for you. And come all the way down here. That filled in all the checkbox, but actually that white little area is part of the background. I want to remove that. So I'll come up here, select mark areas to remove, and then click that. And it's not the most intuitive. Sometimes you have to go back and forth, but you can really get it pretty close just by using this feature without having to go through another software. And then again, keep those changes, and I have a transparent image that I can use. So there's an image editing hack for you that should save you a lot of time if you're using a lot of stock images and importing them, whether you're storyboarding and you want to have more of a clean storyboard, or especially if you're actually creating a course that's going to be seen by a learner, then you want to make sure that you're getting rid of those backgrounds so it looks good. All right, moving right along. I think we're making good time. The next one is using the selection panel. So one thing we know about PowerPoint and how it differs from other e-learning authoring tools is that there is no timeline. So there really is no way that you can kind of see objects, see where they are on the screen, see the names of objects, see where they are relative to each other like you would be able to in some other authoring tools. However, there is a way that you can get pretty close to that, and that's by using the selection panel in PowerPoint. So this is just a Venn diagram graphic that I downloaded from our PowerPoint graphics library. You can see it's pretty busy. There are a lot of different shapes, text boxes, a lot of different layers here. Some text boxes overlap other text boxes. So for example, if I wanted to edit this part 6 text right here, I would actually have to select this element title and then move that out of the way and then have access to that other text box. It can take a lot of work to edit a heavily designed PowerPoint slide. However, something that makes this a lot easier is opening the selection panel. So if I have the home tab activated.
Before you move in, now that you've made this new image, can you save it out for future use? Save it as a separate file?
So this particular image right here, the image that I imported, yeah, so I can just select all of that and then select every single part of the image, right click, and then save as picture. And then it'll let me download an image with a lot of these different file types.
What about the checkbox that you changed in the background?
Oh, gotcha. Yes, exact same thing. So now that I made my edits, I can click Save as Picture. Same process, and that will save it without the background.
Excellent. So any changes you make to any templates that you get from the eLearning Brothers library, you could easily save out and use that anywhere else you wanted to.
Yep. That's another great thing about PowerPoint is you can save edit anything and you can save anything. That's why a lot of people use it. I think that was mentioned, is just to edit images. So there's a lot you can do. Great question, thank you. All right, so jumping back to this Venn diagram here, if I want to kind of break this up so I can edit parts of these individually, I can do that in the selection panel. So if I have the Home tab activated, come over here to the editing section, select, and then open up the selection pane. And what that will do is that'll show all of the objects that I have on my screen with their names and in what order they're layered on the slide. So anything that's on top is going to be on top of the screen, and anything that's on bottom of this list is going to be on the bottom of the screen. From here, I can show or hide the objects. So if there was just one particular object I wanted to edit in this particular slide, I can hide all and then show that object I want to edit, make my edits, and then show everything else, which is really, really convenient. You can also rename objects here as well, where this comes in handy. So let me just rename this to element 1, for example. And where this comes in handy is if you're using a lot of animations. So if you're familiar with the animations window, if I come up here, select animations in PowerPoint, and I want to add an animation to this particular object, I'd select it right here. And then maybe I want to add an animation to this as well. To see all of those animations, I would open up the animations pane. However, it can get really confusing working with animations, because by default PowerPoint just assigns a text box or a shape with a different number, and that's what you see here. So in order to actually time your animations properly, you have to click back and forth and then look on the slide and then rearrange here. However, if you use a selections pane, you can name all of the objects on your screen a unique name, and then when you're adjusting the animations, you can just do that a lot easier and a lot quicker. This is something you would probably want to add to your quick access toolbar as well. It's really nice just to be able to activate that, kind of get a bird's eye view of everything that's on your slide, especially if you are creating a slide or creating a slide deck for someone else, and you want to make sure you're delivering a clean file. Using this, you can make sure that there aren't any hidden objects lurking in your slides that might be confusing for someone who's editing. All right, that's the selection pane. Really nice feature. All right, so we do have a few minutes left, so I'm going to jump into using links to create branching, and this is one of the newest features in PowerPoint. And let's say, for example, I know some of you mentioned that you do create interactive e-learning courses or modules in PowerPoint. And to add interactivity, so let's say, for example, I wanted to add a menu slide to my presentation. Usually how I would do that is insert a new slide, blank slide, come into, again, insert, add some shapes right here to double as a button, right click, select link, and then choose a slide in my document that I wanted to branch to. Then click OK, and then now that would function as a branching button. However, with the new PowerPoint feature called Zoom, you can actually do this automatically, and you can do it in a really cool way. So if I wanted to add a menu slide to my project, what I would do is come up into Insert. In the Links section, select Zoom. I'll select the Zoom drop-down and add a summary zoom. What that'll do is it'll open up a window that will allow me to choose. Right here in the instructions, it says select the beginning slide of each section. So here I would define my sections or my chapters, as they would probably more commonly be known. So let's say I want one chapter to start there, one section to start there, another section to start there when I get into my example slides, and then my question slide will be the third section. Click Insert. What that does is that actually creates a summary set. It's called a summary section slide, but it functions as a menu slide. Let me change the layout here. make this blank. Not that blank, this one. There you go. All right, now if I select this and come up here, I now have a zoom tab that I can edit edit some parts of my zoom feature. So here I can edit the summary, which is choosing which sections that I want, which slides that I want to be my section title. If I change though, I can actually click and drag all of these and change the layout. I can come up here and reset that as well. And I can actually also change the image of these. So by default, it's just going to be a thumbnail of the slide that you're branching to. If I want to change that to something else, I can just replace it with any other image that I have. So you're not stuck with just that screenshot right there. So if I play this slide right here, I'm automatically presented with this menu slide. And now if I select this, it'll zoom right into that slide that I selected as the first slide in the section. And then I can navigate to the next slide, and then this was the last slide in my section. Once I navigate to this, it's going to zoom out and zoom back into the menu. And then I can move on to the next section, click through, and the exact same thing will happen there. And zoom out, and I can navigate that way. So if you're familiar with Prezi, which is another presentation authoring tool, that's kind of their big selling point, is that they can do some of that really cool animations and interactivity in there. With this new PowerPoint feature, you can get some of that directly within PowerPoint, which is really, really nice. So I can add a summary section right there. However, if I just wanted to add a Zoom slide directly onto if I just wanted to branch to one slide from a specific slide, I can just do that by inserting a slide zoom right here. So again, I went up to insert, zoom, slide zoom, and then I can select the slide. So let's say I wanted to add that question slide right there. I can move that around, I can change the size, and then now if I play this from this slide, right here, I added that to my title slide, zoom right there, and then that's going to advance into the next slide of my presentation. However, if I wanted to just kind of maybe lightbox a slide, kind of use that lightbox feature, and if I just wanted to jump to this question slide, once I'm done with that slide, return to this slide, I can come up here to the zoom, select this, come up to the zoom options, and then select return to zoom. And now if I jump back to this, once I advance and I'm done with this slide, it'll jump right back out to the slide that I was already on.
Now Zoom's been around for 2.5, 3 years. Do you know what version you got to have to get Zoom?
So Zoom, I believe it's been around since 16.
Okay.
I'm not sure what year that came out. There hasn't been a big PowerPoint update in a while, but that's their newest feature is Zoom, is one of the main new PowerPoint features. Any other questions about Zoom?
Not about Zoom. There's a couple questions about importing your finished PowerPoint into Captivate or Storyline to see if the interactions or animations stay. I'm not sure if
that's a good question. In respect to Zoom and the Zoom feature, probably
any of the features that involve with animations or even like the branching or anything like that.
I know as far as branching functionality, that does transfer into PowerPoint and Storyline just fine. And any PowerPoint animations, if you're just using any of the animations right here, those are also pretty good about transferring to the other authoring tools. I know Storyline, I've never had any issues bringing a PowerPoint into Storyline. As far as functionality goes, the only issue there is really just kind of objects resizing themselves. Captivate, there might be some issues, but I couldn't pinpoint exactly what would not work in there, just because there's so many different features.
All right, great.
Any other questions? Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, awesome. So I just have one last feature that is actually, I think it might be my favorite. I think it's really underused. I used this functionality a lot when I was creating presentations back when I was in school. I would usually be the one who was kind of designing the PowerPoint presentation if we were doing a group project in class and we all needed to combine it into one. I was always the one that liked to combine everything in there, and then usually what you would have to do is I'd have to add my PowerPoint project to a flash drive, or either email it to myself, launch that PowerPoint project on maybe my professor's machine, and then present that to the class. But that presented a whole host of issues. Sometimes things didn't show up right, and that also made it possible for people to jump into the project and make different changes. So what I started doing is, instead of just saving my project when I was completely done with it, just saving it as a PowerPoint presentation, so that PPTX file, I would save it as a PowerPoint macro enabled show. So if I come to the menu and click Save As, by default you're saving as a PowerPoint presentation, which is that PPTX extension. I click this drop down, I have a ton of different options I can save my presentation as. If I select this one, PowerPoint macro enabled show, so a PPSM file, I select that, and then I would rename it. So just add show right there, click save. And now what that does is, instead of, when it comes time for me to present this project, instead of actually having to launch my PowerPoint project and then navigate to the first slide and select start from beginning, what you can do if you create a macro enabled show, let me get this, let me move my Finder over here. Where is it? There we go. So this is the folder that I just saved that in. Now I have two projects here. I have my PowerPoint presentation and then my PowerPoint macro enabled slideshow. So for this, if I just launch this file, what that's going to do is just immediately launch it in presentation mode, so I don't have to worry about actually opening up the project and maybe having things change or anything like that. If I'm designing a project for someone to launch and I'm doing a lot in PowerPoint, I can just finish the project, save it as a PowerPoint macro enabled show, hand that off to whoever's going to be launching it, and then I don't have to worry about maybe someone not knowing how to launch it in PowerPoint, or worry about someone making unnecessary edits to the project. They can just launch it, and it launches it in the I can show the presenter view right here, and then it's just like I'm presenting the presentation like I would if I had gone into the PowerPoint file and selected play project from the beginning. So that cuts out a few steps, and also kind of make sure that your project you put a lot of work into isn't going to be changed by someone who doesn't need to change it. All right, and I'm going to move on to my question slide. That was really all I had for PowerPoint hacks, at least for this webinar. Like I said, there are a ton of different things you can do. In PowerPoint, but I decided to narrow it down to those. Are there any other questions on anything that I talked about today?
There's a couple questions about the integration with Camtasia. So can you talk about not the Camtasia plugin, but just the recording your presentation with the PowerPoint recorder?
Mm-hmm. Yep, so that's also an option. I'll exit out of here. I can actually insert a screen recording directly into PowerPoint just by selecting that. And then I have these options here, whether to record the pointer. So if I want to kind of create a software simulation, I can do that directly within PowerPoint. And then what that'll do is that will actually kind of create a simulation. So anytime I click something, it'll create a separate slide in PowerPoint. And then I have the options to edit any of my screenshots or anything like that I would need to. Was there a specific question on how to was the question how to do that, or maybe how you import that into?
So that exports just an MP4 with your presentation, right? And you can choose to record your audio or not.
Yep. So that's all in the screen recording options right here. So if you want to, I'll select the area to record. Let's just say I do this, and then record here. I'll just do some interactions there, and once I'm done, I can just return to my PowerPoint presentation. Escape there. Oh. And then come up here, stop recording. And then what that does is that just inserted it directly in there, and it's now a video that I can play and then export as well.
Okay, and then what if now that you've made your presentation, you want to export it as a video? So like record yourself going through the presentation. Is that possible with PowerPoint directly, or do you need to have the Camtasia plugin in order to do that?
No, I actually don't know. That's a good question. We can research that for you. Do you have any? I know you know a little bit about the Camtasia
so if you have the
plugin.
Camtasia plugin, you can go over to that, and in fact, you should have it, right, Andrew? You've got Camtasia somewhere in your machine.
I do have Camtasia. I don't know if I have the plugin installed.
Perhaps. Yeah, they're on the top left side. So the record, you can choose to record.
Oh, there you go.
Just your screen and your audio. You can also make it so it records your webcam. And then what that does is when it brings it into PowerPoint, it brings in 3 separate tracks. So one of your presentation, one of your audio, and one of your video. So that makes it a little bit easier to edit. However, you cannot manipulate your presentation within Camtasia. So that might not be the best solution if you're looking to be able to manipulate those after it's recorded. So yeah, I mean, if you guys have more questions about the Camtasia webinar, let us know. In the blog recap, we'll post all of these notes, and let us know if you're interested in Camtasia, and we'll try to get all your questions answered there. That's all the questions that we've got for now.
Great.
So here's the thing. So we do have a ton. I'll go ahead and turn my webcam on. We do have a ton of PowerPoint templates in our PowerPoint template library. This includes individual graphics, and those are in EPS, so they can be edited inside of PowerPoint. You know, your color, your shape, your size, the details of them. We've also got full built-out templates that are really cool. They've got some really cool animations. There's lots of stuff to see there. And Andrew's got it there on the screen, elearningbrothers.com/PowerPoint graphics. And these are available in our free 7-day trial. So if you wanted to just go in and try 10 of these PowerPoint assets, you can. Or if you wanted to maybe get some of the PowerPoint templates and then also grab some Storyline or some Captivate, even Camtasia and Lectora assets, you can grab those in our template library during that free trial. And you'll find more information about that at elearningbrothers.com as well. Any other closing thoughts, Andrew?
No, that's it for me. Thanks for logging on today.
All right, great. Thanks for joining us, everybody. Thanks, Andrew, for this information. We'll send out the recording to everybody later in the day, and we'll try to, there's a couple more questions that have just come in. We'll try to get these answered offline. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.